Just going to talk about the effects of nutrition and reproduction in beef cattle for my presentation for Dr. Calloway's class. First of all, we're going to talk about why nutrition is important to reproduction. Um, as we all know, nutrition is the main factor that producers can control in an operation, and so this is important so that they can help control their reproduction and get that one healthy calf per year um, goal. So low energy uptake in late pregnancy and postpartum results in lower birth weights, decreased death rates, lower weaning rates, and reduced conception rates at the first try back after having a calf. All of these factors result in a decrease in a producer's bottom line, and that decreases their then to the next year decreases their ability to feed those cows like they need to, and the cycle continues. So I looked at several different studies about postpartum energy intake and reproductive performance, and this is kind of what they all said. So the first one was tested 5 groups, and so the group 3, which was fed the highest amount of total digestible nutrients, had higher above average body weights and body condition scores compared to the other groups in the experiment. So this leads to better breed back, and but the cows weren't overweight, and so they were kind of that perfect middle. These cattle also had larger follicle sizes when fed higher TDN at least 3 weeks before estrus. So there was 2 groups, group 3 and group 5, that were fed higher amounts of TDN 3 weeks before estrus. Not meeting the nutritional needs of these cattle resulted in lower pregnancy rates and extended postpartum intervals, which then in turn means the longer you have to feed the cows to get them bred back, and the more stretched out your calving season becomes. So these are just 2 graphs or 2 charts showing the conception rate of cows fed different levels after TDN. So that was that experiment that I mentioned on the last slide. So you can see the group 3 had the highest at 83% after first service, and then had 100 across the board. And that group 5 also was fed 3 weeks before their first estrus and had really high conception rates, both leading to 100%. So the third column you'll see had high conception rates, but that was after 2 or 3 services, so that's a long spread out time. The one on the right hand side is the effects of protein supplementation on heifers. So you can see the higher, or when they were supplemented, they had higher birth weights, and then higher dry matter intake, following the chart down to higher percent pregnancy rates at 93 and 90 when these heifers were supplemented. This was kind of an interesting study I found. So this was about rumen-protected polyunsaturated fatty acid supplementation. So these cows were fed this rumen-protected PUFA, and then in turn had a higher average pregnancy rate than those cattle that were not supplemented. As you can see in the experiment 1, they had 51% pregnancy rate, and then 39 versus the 39 in the control, and that's the same all the way down the board. So these results showed that feeding a rumen-protected polyunsaturated fatty acid can increase pregnancy rates and post-breeding success. They're still doing more studies on that, I believe. We talked in class a little bit about ionophores and how 95% of cattle in the U.S. were fed an ionophore. So this just kind of backs the reasoning for that. Feeding an ionophore results in the early return of estrus, and this is because you increase the propionate levels in the rumen. These ionophores also increase the feed efficiency of cattle and heifers, so that will have an effect on your bottom line because you can feed the same and get more out of it, or feed less and get the same. However, the study did show the cows in a system that resulted in short postpartum intervals did not show a large percentage of improvement when fed these ionophores, but cows that were in long postpartum intervals showed the greatest improvement and potential when using or when fed an ionophore in their diet. So in conclusion, we kind of mentioned or talked about how nutrition and reproduction go hand in hand when producing beef cattle. So nutrition is one factor that in production that a producer has control over, and it's also the most expensive factor in production, and so it's really important to control that and make the most out of your what you're given and what you have available. So as the studies or the points I mentioned back or show, improved nutrition in late pregnancy and after calving leads to better reproductive performance, both with the calf and in the mother. So on the calf side, that increases birth weights and just better overall calf performance at weaning time and at the sale barn. Also increases live births, which is very important in an operation. It also decreases that time to first estrus, so you can get those cattle fed back faster, and it increases first time conception rates, so you can keep your calving season shorter and so you can have bigger loads to take to the sale barn. So I chose this because as an ag business major, I see the harm in having those long calving seasons, and so you can take bigger loads to the sale barn at a time, and nutrition is definitely the most important, the most expensive and important factor in an operation. So that's why you should feed your cows during late pregnancy and after calving, because it only will help your operation.